Hey, what's up, Superdads? I got something here today that I think is kind of a game changer. Hopefully you'll think so too, and hopefully you can hear me despite the fact that I'm outside and there's like construction going on right over there. But it's either this or a super messy room with kids going crazy in it, and I think that this one's probably going to be easier. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about today is an exercise that is fantastic for developing nice round shoulders, for developing shoulder strength, shoulder sort of health and mobility, and for fixing postural problems. If you have sort of the hunched forward shoulders that, I'm always working at my desk, whatever, that sort of thing that almost all of us have, we're always using our phones, these sorts of things, I think this exercise, again, as I said before, is pretty much a game changer. Now, in general, let me say, most posture fixing exercises are kind of nonsense. People's problem with posture is not that their muscles aren't strong enough, right? And, like if you had super strong, doing face pulls can help for a reason I'll explain in a second, but it's not that your muscles back here are weak, right? Just like if somebody had super strong traps, they don't walk around like this all the time because their traps are strong. The problem is not the strength of the muscles, it's which muscles you're in the habit of activating. And so if you're hunched forward like this, basically it's habit. You have the habit of bad posture because that's the posture that you spend most of your time in. Concomitant with that, it could be that your muscles in the front are a bit overactive, right? They might be a bit tight. So it's not so much strengthening the muscles in the back as it could be releasing the muscles in the front, stretching them out so that they're not quite as overactive, not quite as tight, and not pulling you forward. But the number one thing is that it's a habit. Now, having said that, why certain exercises like the one I'm going to show you here can help improve your posture is not necessarily because they strengthen the muscles in the back, but it's because when you're doing them, you are practicing better posture. You're practicing better posture. You're doing that practice mindfully. When you're just like this, you're not mindful of where your posture is, but when you're practicing doing a face pull, something like this, you're mindful, you're in your body, you are embodied when you're doing it, and that's going to create more neural pathways that are going to reinforce this, way of using your body. All right, now, the exercise I want to show you is, I'm going to do it with a resistance band for reasons I'll explain in a second, but it's a behind the neck press. So a typical shoulder press, you press in front of your body like this, overhead press, that's how you can press the most amount of weight. But, I would argue for shoulder development, the behind the neck press is actually much better. The in front of the body press, the typical overhead press, gets mostly the anterior part of your deltoid. And I've had problems in the past of doing only overhead pressing like this and ending up with sort of shoulder problems, largely due to imbalances. Now, for a long time, the behind the neck press and the upright row were sort of the bugbears of shoulder training. It's going to cause impingement, it's going to ruin your shoulders, these sorts of things. And most of it is kind of nonsense if you do them correctly. Almost any exercise that people say, you shouldn't do that one because it's dangerous. The problem is not that it's dangerous to everybody. The problem is that if you don't have the requisite mobility to be doing that exercise, it can cause problems. But that is not a reason to not do the exercise. That's a reason to work on your mobility to the point where you can do the exercise. So it's like if I said every time I cut vegetables, I cut my finger, so and some expert says, oh, well, clearly cutting vegetables is dangerous. I mean, obviously that would be nonsense. And the way to remedy the situation wouldn't be to avoid cutting vegetables. It would be to cut vegetables more regularly, but to do it right at the edge of my comfort zone so that I'm slowly developing the ability, becoming more comfortable with, a wider range of behaviors in that space, these sorts of things. So I wouldn't go, all right, well, I have to do this, so I'm going to jump in, and I'd end up cutting myself again. Just like if you're going, all right, I need to develop the ability to press behind my neck, I'm going to put a ton of weight on the bar and give that a go, and you don't have the mobility, you're going to screw yourself up. But go get the vegetables, Slice them slowly, mindfully. Be careful, where you're starting to feel uncomfortable. You want to be just inside that so that you're pushing that comfort zone, that comfort space ever further outward. It's exactly the same for exercises like this. Exactly the same. Now, having said that, I do think that there are a couple little tweaks you can make. With the upright row, I did a video previously where I said upright row is a fantastic exercise for developing your shoulders and upper back, and here's how I do it. I don't do it with a barbell, I do it with dumbbells, because when you do it with dumbbells, you have the ability to move freely through a range of motion. The problem with the upright row on a barbell is that if your hands aren't placed in just the right spot, this might be just the right spot when you're in the bottom, but when you get to the top, now you're causing all sorts of weird jam ups and like traffic jams in your joints and shoulders and your wrists and stuff, and it gets very uncomfortable. But you're able to freely move when you have dumbbells, so it's just a fantastic exercise when done that way. The same thing can be said about the behind the neck press, though not quite to the same extent. I think it can be totally safe, much more so than an upright row when done with a barbell. You just have to find the right space to do it at for yourself, right? Because when I do this, the space up here at the top isn't so different from the space down at the bottom. Whereas with an upright row, my natural inclination is to pull them apart. This is weird, and this, holding them down to the bottom, I'm not actually in a relaxed position when I do it. So this is, they're not exactly corollaries in that sense. Here, however, is a fantastic solution to the behind the neck press. Do it with a resistance band. So what would that look like? You're gonna step on the band, put your thumbs through, just like this, thumbs through, and then you're gonna drop it over the back of your head, just like that. So you can see what that looks like. And then from there, I'm just gonna push up. Now, this is real nice because I have a completely vertical, whereas with an overhead press, I kind of have to go out and then back over the top of my head. Here, I'm just pushing completely vertically, so I'm really able to target the lateral head of my deltoid, which is fantastic. And in this case, the resistance band is actually a benefit. Normally, I don't really like resistance bands for these sorts of things. I do use them for a lot of things, but for these sorts of things, they're not fantastic. This is an exception, 100%, for a couple reasons. One, the bottom position of this behind the neck press is much weaker than when you get up to here, right? You're a lot stronger up here. And so the resistance curve of a resistance band actually works out quite well for the behind the neck press. That is one reason. But another one is when you're down in that bottom position, you are actually having to pull the band apart like this a little bit in order to rest, especially if you want to get down nice and low. And you can go very low down your back with this. You can go down below your sort of rear delt if you have the mobility for it, and that's really going to stretch those delts and make them work out of that bottom position. To do that, you're kind of forcing the band apart, and when you force the band apart, you are really reinforcing good posture. Because so much of good posture is forcing the shoulders back and sort of out and down, like you're putting them in your back pockets. So your chest is needing to expand, and in order to pull that band apart, your chest is expanding. So I noticed a difference in my posture immediately after I started doing these. I think that they're fantastic, and they're also an exercise that you can just spam. Now, typically with a high intensity approach, you'd be training like once every couple of days. You wouldn't train a muscle group any more than once every few days, something like that. I will do a video about this later. I don't take a traditional approach in that way. There are some exercises and some muscle groups and some ways in which I throw in a lot more frequency. And things for the shoulder, things like band pull-aparts, that kind of stuff, I put in more frequently. Because, at least for me, my shoulders recover very quickly. Like, I've almost never had sore shoulders. Maybe it's happened twice or three times, 2 decades of training. My shoulders recover very quickly, and so the higher volume works out for them. It's also a function of wanting to flush blood into there. I'm not training them to failure every time I do it, but I am getting a little bit of a pump, and when you get pump, what you're doing is you're sending blood, and you're sending all the nutrients that you're, nutrient-rich, fresh blood going into that muscle and filling it up and helping it to recover from the work that you did earlier. So this is one that I would do, just here and there, days that I'm not training, recovery days, these sorts of things. And the frequency, I think, is a totally valid way to approach this exercise. You could also just, push it to failure. And if you wanted to do that, this is how you do it. Do it the way that I just did it. Go until you can't push it anymore. You could use a thicker band if you need to. Of course, adjust your feet and that kind of stuff if it's called for. But if I were programming it, I'd make this into a synergy set. Hell, like start with an overcoming isometric, not with the band, but do it with an iso trainer or do it on a wall or something like that. Then you're going to go this way until you hit failure. Then you're going to squat down, push up just a bit to about here, stand up, and you're going to hold this position for as long as you can. So yielding isometric style. Really, really hold it, really, really hold it, resist it as long as you can. Obviously, I could have resisted much longer there, but if I had reached failure on the dynamic portion of the movement, I would have reached failure. I would have reached failure much faster on the yielding isometric portion as well. That stands to reason. Okay, so there you have it, behind the neck press with a resistance band. Give it a try and tell me you don't feel like it's pulling that shoulders back. Take it slow, work right at the edge of your comfort zone. Don't push it into the area where you're feeling pain or anything like that. Just where you're feeling it's challenging you. That is how we make changes. That's the law of accommodation. Just a little bit of challenge regularly produces huge results over time. All right, thanks for watching. You want some programs that are going to incorporate these sorts of exercises, minimal equipment, super high effectiveness, very safe. You can check them out down below. There's a free one there along with other ones designed for people with specific kinds of limitations or equipment and that kind of stuff. This is an exercise that I will be filming and putting into existing programs, especially the Bodyweight program at home, since that's based around mostly bodyweight with just one of these resistance bands. So if you have the program, you can look forward to that coming in and being programmed in. All right, thank you so much for your attention, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.